Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Bracks, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. In today's episode, I spoke to Hugh Sheridan. He's an Australian actor and singer. He's won a number of Logie Awards, and in this episode, we talked about his journey, the hardships he's been through, and the many experiences he's had. I hope you enjoy. All right, Hugh, so thank you so much, mate, for coming and talking to me for my new podcast, Move Your Mind. I've known you for, it's probably close to 10 years now, and we seem to bump into each other every 2 to 3 years, if not longer gaps, but I really appreciate you coming on. And thank you, mate. Thank you. So I guess to start with, can you just give me a bit of a quick background on yourself and, you know, what you do?
Where do I start? I'm from Adelaide. I grew up there till I was 16, and then I moved to Melbourne to study at the Australian Ballet School. Left home then, and then when I was 18, I auditioned for NIDA and got in there. Went and studied acting at NIDA. I've always sung, so I've always worked as a singer as well. Ended up graduating, and I've been lucky enough to sort of be employed pretty solidly ever since, which is great. It shows from, obviously I started on Back to the Rafters, and then The Divorce for ABC, House Husbands, Play School, 5 Bedrooms. I've done a bunch of films from the Comeback. I just had Escape and Evasion was released, my latest film. It was released the same week that COVID started, so at the same time they said that no one could go to cinemas anymore. My film just came out, which was a bit annoying. I've been very lucky. I have a band. I do live performances. I've done lots of stage shows as well. Last year I did Hair at Sydney Opera House. In Melbourne, actually, I did Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum with Jeff Rush and Mag Dijabansky and all that. So I've had a very lucky career, but I'm a fairly spiritual person. I've also struggled lots with my own mental health sort of challenges here and there, and so I'm number 6 of 7 children, and my family, we're very tight, and I'm very lucky to have them, and so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. And I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you, mate. And it's hard to keep up with all the different things you do, and it's also hard to keep up with where you are in the world normally. Now it's not so hard right now, but normally it is, and it's a pretty impressive resume that you've got, and, you know, at a very young age as well. I guess your first, you know, major role was on Back to the Rafters. How was that experience, and sort of, was that, you know, did you feel like that was really the beginning of, you know, where you've led to now, or did that really kick things off for you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it was statistically, it's come out now that Back to the Rafters was the most successful show in history, of any country per capita, in that sort of, in Australia. 1 in 3 people watched the show. So we actually just did a reboot of the show, which got stopped for COVID, unfortunately. We'd shot about 4 episodes before we had to shut down. But we'll pick it back up again, and it's now been bought by Amazon. And Amazon are planning to release it to 220 countries, so everyone can enjoy the Rafter family, which is exciting. Sorry for a bit of the noise. I thought it would be nice to be sitting outside, but it's rare for a motorbike to go by, so I think we should be pretty good.
That's fine, mate, and we can chop out any of those sort of things if they come up. I didn't know it was on that level. That's pretty impressive. So I guess, like, you've had COVID's put a couple of things on hold, but it's also a good thing mentally to be able to think, well, that's, you know, something to look forward to. You're finding that's helping, knowing that I've got these things that, you know, I can have this downtime right now, but I can have those mental goals of this is coming up. Because I think that can be difficult when we don't have a something to look forward to, which is probably something we can go into later. But yeah,
I think one of the things that when I talk to people that are young, sort of aspiring entertainers or things like that, I always say, whatever you think that you can't do, you just have to learn it, because the more you know, the more chance you're going to have of being employed. So, like, for instance, there's been times after I finished on Back to the Rafters, because the show was so successful, it was really hard for me to get a job, because it was kind of like being on Friends. So, when Friends ended, none of those actors could get a job for a long time because they were so recognised as being those characters.
Yep.
So I did like a one-man show on Anthony Newley, and I did it at this festival in Adelaide, and then it got picked up, and we did it at the Opera House, and then I took it to New York. Or in other downtimes, I created a band called the California Crooners Club, and we've been really successful in the States, in Los Angeles, and we've toured Australia a few times. We've done the Brisbane Festival a couple of times. We've done Adelaide 5 years in a row, and it's in our first season there, like, we sold more tickets than Laneways Festival. And so it's like, I'm only saying, it's like I have to continuously sort of be an inventor and find creative ways to keep work going, to ensure that I get to keep doing what I love to do, which is to entertain people, because that's what brings me the most joy. So, I think that's often people say things like, it's hard to keep up and you've got so much going on. But it's sort of like, if work stops, then you just need to go, well, what can I do now? What haven't I tried? What can't I do? If I go and I speak at WAPA or NIDA, or even at the Australian Ballet School, I often ask the students who can sing. And maybe a couple of people put their hands up, and I say, well, everyone that didn't put your hand up, you have to go and learn, because I do believe that everyone can learn how to sing. I don't think it's that you either can do or you can't. I know that you can. I mean, even if you're completely tone deaf and you don't have rhythm, you can learn it. It can be done. If I can do it, then you can too. And I really believe that. I don't think I was someone that was a good singer when I was a kid. Everyone used to tell me to shut up in my family. But I just singing and singing and singing, and eventually you just get better at it. And it's, that's the secret, I think, is just to keep going. But it is hard and it's tough, but you just have to keep challenging yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't, like you're saying, you can't be sitting there waiting for the phone to ring or getting despondent because you've had one audition in, a 6-month period. It's so up and down. I guess
you're a great example of that yourself, and I've always admired that about you, because I have known you for a long time. We did meet years and years ago when we were both doing ambassador work for Maya. That's when we first started. And I remember then we were both sort of, I never ever saw myself as anyone that would ever do, say, modelling. I was a really pimply kid at school. I had acne. I had no friends. I was, just very low self-esteem. I probably very depressed, really, looking back. But, I just kept going and sort of got through it. And I knew what I wanted to do, and I found things that made me happy, and I stuck with it. And then to one day be asked to model, I was like, oh my goodness, I just couldn't believe it. I was just so happy for my younger self. Not that modelling ever means anything or anything like that, but I know that to the sad, insecure 13-year-old version of myself, that was a nice compliment. And I was lucky enough to meet you on the job, and then you've done so well in recreating yourself. It's about recreating yourself and taking opportunities, what you did with the underwear range, and then and even what you're doing now with these podcasts, and the way that you're challenging and tackling and talking about mental health. I really admire it. And so I guess it's a great message to get across, is that I think part of overcoming that feeling of oh my goodness, what's coming up next? How am I going to cope? How am I going to do this? Is by saying, people might look from a distance and think, wow, it's so easy for them, or that sort of thing. And it's not easy, but you can create a habit within your own mind of going, okay, well, I feel a bit of fear and worry about tomorrow, but I've already created the habit of going, how am I going to fix this? What can I do?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, that message, applies everywhere. It applies to, the acting industry, entertainment industry, everyday life. And, I appreciate what you said before, but the same thing for me, it's really been, my dream is, and I'm a latecomer to it. My dream's to have an acting career, and I've had very few credits, but I'm working on it. But, from my experience so far, and I remember, and it's like what you were telling me, like what you just said then, and last time we spoke. Really, the way I try and look at it is what you're talking about. What can I do on a practical sense? Okay, the acting's not happening. Okay, I've done my auditions. I'm doing that. What else can I do outside of that? How can I build my business, create more financial security for myself? I feel like that's giving you more freedom to then be creative and explore, and not have to have that anxiety and desperation about I need to land this thing right now, because I feel like that is very common, and sort of what I was going to ask you next. Yeah, do you see? Yeah,
it'll always. It's a trick, and it's a trick that we always have to grapple with. It's a mind game that we play with ourselves, and I remember when I was at NIDA. Sounds like someone might have just started to mow the lawn. I know they've stopped. The leaf blower.
There you go.
I remember when I was at NIDA, I had one of the teachers who was the head of my course he just hated me. And it was fine. I didn't care. And one day he said in front of the whole class, he said, Hugh, you'll never work on film or television.
Wow.
And I was like, but I actually didn't care, because I really just wanted to work on in theatre anyway. That's what I felt like I was trained for.
Right.
Sing, and I could act, and I'd studied dancing. So I thought, that's all right, I'll just work in theatre. And I didn't really have any doubt that I wouldn't be able to achieve that. So getting back to the Rafters was kind of a fluke, but it was also a real good fuck you, because
absolutely.
My whole class auditioned for Back to the Rafters. We all did. Every single one of us auditioned for it. And wow. I managed to land this role, which was a beautiful character that I loved. And I was actually talking to the casting director just last night, and Faye, and we were talking about that moment when I went in and did the audition. And she said, from the minute you walked in, you had the role. Because she said, as soon as you played the character, you understood that there was a certain sensitivity that character needed, that he couldn't be just too much of this Aussie blokey or bogan or anything like that, which is what a lot of people were coming in and doing. But he also just he really, really cared about his family. He really loved his mother. He had to have a lot of heart, and we were talking about that. And so when I look back, in a way, not that I do believe that everything happens for a reason and nothing happens by chance, but really me landing that role, I wasn't something that I expected, and it wasn't something that I was planning for. It wasn't something that I strived for. It just happened, and it happened at the right time. And like I said, I do believe everything happens for a reason, but in many ways I'm sort of like, it just was a bit of a fluke, really.
Yeah, well, yeah, and not a fluke in the sense from what you said. You put your best foot forward. You had a really good understanding of the character and everything else. But what you said before as well. That's what really pisses me off. And I think someone like yourself, you're resilient. You had belief in yourself. I've had so many people in every aspect of my life tell me, you can't do this, you're not going to do that. And I stuck at it, and it happened. But it's sad to think how many careers didn't even have the chance of happening because people have been told, no, you can't do this, you're not good enough, or whatever it is. It's really bad. And it's that societal thing, that tall poppy sort of thing of trying to put people down or put people in a basket. And the reality is, as you were saying before, with like singing, anyone can do anything if they want to really commit to it and give it a shot. But we get told we can't.
It's very hard. One of the it's so interesting, this whole COVID experience and everything that sort of happened for me has been, I mean, in many ways, I know that a lot of people have been struggling, and I have certainly, you know, there are days when I've woken up and I've just felt immensely sad, you know, and I couldn't even work out why, because in all honesty, I feel as though my overall experience of this sort of lockdown has actually been very positive. But I do believe in a collective consciousness, and I do believe that there's an energetic awareness amongst all of us. And some of us are more sensitive, I guess, than others, or, you know, but I feel like a lot of people are becoming sort of aware of that. And I've got a lot of friends that I've spoken to that have been struggling, and maybe I take on some of their emotions sometimes, and or even feel guilty for actually enjoying the fact that being someone that was, you know, I was working on Pack to the Rafters in Sydney, I was working on 5 bedrooms in Melbourne, and I was doing live shows in Adelaide from January right through to March.
Mm.
And I just finished my last live show in Adelaide. So I was on like 4 or 5. Well, I mean, you couldn't even do 5. I was on a minimum of 6 flights a week because I was going between each state every week. Sometimes it was more like 8 because I would have to shoot in Melbourne and then fly to Sydney and shoot there, and sometimes fly back on the same day to shoot again and then fly to Adelaide. And it was a real nightmare. And I kept thinking, well, Hugh, you brought this upon yourself. You know, this is what you wanted. Because in my head, I thought, I'm going to go to Australia and I'm going to achieve all this work, and it's going to be so great, and then I can have a break. And by the end of it, I was starting to get very tired. Yeah. And a little bit over the flying, but I remained very grateful for the work. I really did. You know, I kept every time I wanted to complain about the 4:30 a.m. wake-up calls. I remember checking into a hotel in St Kilda, and it was 1:30 a.m. And I said to the people at the reception, who I'd started to know very well because I was in and out all the time, I said, can I have a wake-up call? And they said, what time? And I said, 4:30 a.m. And the guy looked at me and he said, oh, my goodness. And I woke up. I said, it's fine. I'm used to it. I felt like I just put my head on the pillow and the alarm went off, and I went downstairs and he handed me a coffee that he'd made. And he said, there were no coffee shops open yet, but he said, I made you this. And I nearly burst into tears just because it was such a small act of kindness, but it meant so much to me. And I kept thinking, I've got so much to be grateful for. There is no need to complain. People have suffered far worse than this. There are a lot of people without work. Some, you know, our ancestors went to war, for crying out loud. I shouldn't be complaining about getting on planes and going and working and doing all this stuff. So I trust me, I'm not complaining about the work or the opportunities, but I did feel from time to time very tired, and that maybe I've committed myself.
I can imagine.
When everything stopped, I had an idea about 4 years ago to write a film about my time when I was at the Australian Ballet School when I moved to Melbourne when I was 16. And shortly after I arrived, my grandmother died, and I went into a depression. And it was the first
time mate. Yeah.
Suffered depression, and it was a real challenge because I was only 16. I was living away from home, and the person that I lived with was crazy. She used to count how many cornflakes I could have. I ended up having to run away in the middle of the night. It was really insane. And I always thought, and also back then, that was in 2003, the teachers were a lot tougher than I think they can get away with being now. you know, like a teacher could never say to a student like mine did at night, oh, you will never work in TV or film. And his reason for it was he said, you don't have the right face for it. But a teacher, I don't think can get away with saying it these days. But back then they could. And I thought that would be a really great movie to write. And anyway, so I sat down and I started to write this movie. And I finished it, actually. It sort of poured out of me in 2 weeks. And I've never really written or done anything. Like, I've never written a film before, certainly. I've read a lot of scripts. But I just kept going with it. And I was staying up late and writing and writing and writing. And the film is about mental health. That's the whole thing. And it's been picked up by Bronte Pictures. I only found out 2 days ago, and they're financing it, and they want to make it next year in 2021. So that was a massive bonus for me, but it was also a huge release. And there were many times when I was writing the movie that I would just be typing and sobbing, because not out of sadness. I mean, I was sad because I was reliving a lot of these emotions, and I kept thinking, you know, someone said to me, what would you say to your 16-year-old self if you could say something to Hugh now when you were 16? And I said, I would just give him a big hug. And at the start of the film, you know, without giving away anything, I will tell you, it says, this film is dedicated to your 16-year-old self. And to any young person watching, you are okay. You are enough. The best is yet to come. Trust me. Because
I love that.
I think it's so important, especially at a time like now, to remind each other that it's actually okay to be alone with your thoughts. You don't have to be scared of them. Sometimes they're not great, but there are so many ways to get through it. And I think one of the best ways to sort of heal yourself is to go back into the past and work out where people did actually let you down, whether they're teachers or parents or lovers or friends or whatever. And sort of, you know, I guess in the best way that you can, see that there was probably some deeper issue with them and forgive them. And also just to be proud and congratulate yourself for getting through it.
Absolutely, mate. No, thank you for sharing that. And so many amazing points you're making in everything you're saying here. And congratulations on the film as well. And I love the fact that you've, you know, been able to also put this time to, you know, to use and be productive. And it's a message for everyone of, you know, yes, things are not great. Yes, there's so many things we can't control. But if we just sit and wallow in that, it's not going to have any benefit for anyone, and it's going to lead to
negativity as well. Like, you know, my friends who are complaining about work and stuff that have children.
Yeah.
I'll see them, you know, really busy CEOs and stuff, and they're at home and they're cooking and they're spending so much time with their kids. And I'm like, I actually secretly have this feeling that people might look back in a couple of years' time and think that this might have been one of the greatest moments of their life, but
actually miss it a bit. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think they'll miss it a lot. And I think
my mum was saying that the other day, actually. Yeah. The same point.
If you turn off the news and you stop listening to all the fear breeding and, you know, there is so much fear in the news. There is so much negativity and so much to be scared of and so much suspicion and conspiracy and all this stuff floating around. And I just go, the fastest way to lower your immune system is fear. It really,
absolutely.
Fear and guilt shut down your body so fast. They can really play with your mind, with your heart, with everything. You know, and if you can block that out, I mean, that is, I mean, I wish they were like promoting more of the positive stories about families that are just actually having to spend so much time together, get to know each other. A friend of mine was in quarantine, and a friend of mine from New York, and she is a real social person. She's really out there. She's not good at being on her own. She, is just always loud and proud. And her name's Sally, and she's wild. And anyway, she's come back to Australia, and she got put into the government quarantining in the Novotel for 14 days. And I tell you what, if there was anyone that was starting to flip down the drain, it was her. She was losing it. And I said to her on day 3 when she said, lucky they're giving me, paper knives and forks. She said, I'm just she couldn't cope. And I said, trust me, this is going to be a really special time for you. I said, you just need to, you're going to be on, you're going to get to know Sally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she did. And it's just, regardless of however much we want to fight it, the universe is saying that we do indeed stop.
I love it. I love that, mate, because it's so true. It's like, we're looking at the external. We live in this consumer-driven, fast-paced world. We're never off our phones. And like you're saying, very few people have gone and taken the time and done the work to actually get to know yourself. We want everything else. We want to look after all these external things, but never pause and get to know ourselves. And that's ultimately what's going to make us happy and a better person. So,
and I mean,
it is, it's like,
I maybe one of the reasons that I was so relaxed about it is because I couldn't actually keep up with myself. It was a little, sometimes I wake up in a hotel and it takes me a minute to know where I am. When you're just cloudy and you wake up and you just go, when I first got back to Australia, I kept waking up thinking that I was in Los Angeles, and then I would remember that I'd actually come to Australia, or, waking up in Melbourne thinking that I'm in Sydney, not knowing what's going on or whatever. And so I was really happy because I'd been craving time to spend with myself. And it is scary. It's not always pretty getting to know yourself, but ultimately it is, because you have to learn to embrace the things about yourself that you wish were different or whatever. You have to, and I think one of the things that I've been learning is to try and be kinder to myself.
Yeah.
I've also continuously sort of been working on this other project, which is the one thing that's actually continued through COVID. And unfortunately, or depending on when this comes out, when are you going to put this podcast out, do you think?
I'm not 100. Probably. I mean, this will be up to you as well when you want it out there. But in the next few weeks, if not later. I mean, I've got a few back recorded, so you can guide me on that as well.
If you wanted to wait until it'll probably be early June, then I can tell you this other thing that I've been working on.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Let's do that, because I've got enough of a backlog that we can do it then. Yeah.
Well, it'll be good because you'll definitely get more exposure through it if you want to wait till then. So basically, come January, when I came to Australia and embarked on all these jobs, and more in the last few years when I come to Australia, I've been flying back and forth from the States. Like, I think last year I flew across the Pacific, 24 times, which was a record for me, I think. But I also flew around the world on top of that, like a few times. And the year before that was very similar, and I was getting very used to just living out of a suitcase, having a lot of shifting ground. And whenever I was in Australia, I had often had people reach out to me saying, well, we should train and we should do this. And I'd sort of go, I'm only in Sydney for 2 days. And
Yeah, you just don't have time. Yeah.
family, I'll be in Melbourne
Yeah.
for 2 days. I'll be in Perth for a day. And then I've got to go and perform in Brisbane, and then I've got to fly back. And then I would come back and it would always be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I was coming back to do Pack to the Rafters, and I didn't realise how big my commitment would be for 5 bedrooms and that I was going to be there back and forth so much. I knew that the weekends I'd be in Adelaide, but I agreed to do this transformation with Men's Health. And I started it, and it was really, really hard. Really, really hard, because I had no time to get into the gym, but I was making time. I was taking time to make time, so that meant that I really didn't have any downtime at all, because my days on Pack to the Rafters were so long. I'd start at 5 a.m. and finish at 7:30 p.m. and then go to the gym, or if I had a later start, which would be like 8 a.m., then I'd go to the gym at 6 a.m. and and then I was on this full-on diet. And very early on, I thought, this is ridiculous. It's never going to work. But I stuck with it. And then I knew that coming towards, after like about 6 weeks, Pack to the Rafters would finish shooting, and then I would only be doing 5 bedrooms, and I could concentrate on Men's Health, and also the performances in Adelaide would be finished. But then COVID happened.
Yeah.
Not only did I have time to train, but I couldn't see a trainer. I couldn't leave. I couldn't go to a gym. And they basically said, we understand if you just want to stop. And
Right.
I've come so far. I think I want to try and do this. And I kept going, and it was really, it created, like, if it couldn't have been a more interesting journey between writing the film and then trying to achieve this 12-week challenge goal of a body transformation. I definitely have challenged myself, but I got through it, and the issue will be out now. But it was a real struggle, because my instincts a lot of the time when you're on your own and you're in isolation is you do want to just like stay up late, watch Netflix.
Yep.
You lose time sort of changes when you don't have these deadlines. But then I did have this deadline. Like, I would wake up and think, I have to train today, and I have to do it myself. I can't rely on anyone else to do this. And it was really difficult sometimes. And then when I was getting really into the film, I felt that I was much more creative and I could write really well late at night. So I was writing from like 10 p.m. till sometimes 5:30 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So guilty, because I'm like, I've stayed up all night writing, and I'm supposed to be training and all this. And then I eventually was like, Hugh, you're insane. Like, you have to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you have to realize what's actually happening here and actually stop beating the drum of I should be doing this and I should be doing that. There are no rules as to what you should and shouldn't be doing. The main thing is that we're getting up and we're doing it. Even if you not get, like, you know what? Have a day in bed. Have a few days in bed. Whatever this time is for each individual person, it should be a time of complete non-judgment. You know?
Absolutely.
I think learning to be kind to myself has been a really big journey, and learning to actually say to myself, you're doing a really good job and I'm really proud of you. You know, to look in the mirror and actually say that to yourself is so much harder than you think. But I do now, and I can say that, and I don't feel guilty. I don't think we should shy away from actually congratulating ourselves every now and then and saying, you're doing the best that you can, and that's okay. You don't,
for sure.
Man. You don't have to, you know. I said that in the interview for Men's Health. They said, oh, well, you know, how was it, you know, going on this diet and quitting drinking and all that sort of thing? I said, look, I stuck to the diet pretty well, but I did cheat. I did. And every now and then I dipped into the chocolate and had like a whole block.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more that I enjoy than having a glass of red wine while I'm watching Netflix and eating chocolate at the same time. And I tell you, that was part of my routine. But it was also part of my mental health, because you have to do what makes you happy, and you can't deprive yourself from you know, from what you need, if that's the kind of person you are. Like, some people just get a kick out of going for a run, and that's great. I'm not. That's why I challenged myself to do this transformation. And it was hard. And I you know, so I'm proud of that, but I do want to get the message across to all of your listeners that you can achieve your goals, but without changing who you are, because you don't essentially need to change anything about yourself. It's your attitude towards yourself that needs to change.
Yeah, it's so important, mate. And it's, you know, I struggle with that. You know, it's got that constant inner critic saying, no, it's not enough. You need to do more. You need to do this. And it's such a universal thing. But ultimately,
I've always been similar like that. I've always said that.
It's sort of that. But I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is, if you follow that, you'll burn out, and you won't have you'll have more success if you actually can learn to just say, you know, trust yourself and say it's okay. You like what you're saying, you know, it's okay if I am having an off day, or if I can only get this much done today, that's okay. I'm doing the best I can, and, you know, otherwise you burn out and you lose creativity, and it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, and even if you don't, like, burn out, and you keep going, but you're not enjoying it,
what's the point? Exactly.
Exactly. What's the point? Because
who are you doing it for? Yeah, it's like, what's the point? Who am I? Yeah.
That friend of mine, Sal, who was in quarantine, and she said, I had so many plans to do all this stuff, and she said, I feel like I've done nothing. And I said to her, without even thinking, I said, I feel exactly the same. And she said, Hugh, you wrote a film. Just done the cover of Men's Health. She said, what are you talking about? And I went, shit. Like, I really realized how unconsciously my brain had gone back to negative talk, because I was judging myself for having a glass of wine and eating carbs. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, that is insane. That is insane. You know, if you have a mind, and I know that there's lots of people that will be listening that will relate to this. If you have a mind that naturally goes to a critical place, you really have to keep in check, because it's very clever.
Yeah.
Very clever brain. And it's not telling you the truth a lot of the time. And and once you get in check and you tell it to shut up, and you actually go, you know what? Shut up. You're awesome. You're doing a great job. It's a much better way to live, you know, and it's the only way.
It's the only way. And it's just, you know,
as no matter how many times, I mean, you're doing the podcast and everything, but I know you and I, you know, and I'm saying all of this, but there's a very good chance that in half an hour I'll say something negative.
I was about to say the same thing. Exactly.
It's a constant struggle, but you know what? We know too much now, you know.
Yeah.
And knowing it is the gift, and all we have to do is keep in check.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's all you can do. No one's going to ever be perfect. But I think that's why, that's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why it's so important we have these conversations. It's just about education, letting everyone know that we're all in this together. We all have the same sort of positives and negatives we can fall into. Everyone, no one's perfect. And the more we can talk about it.
It's like,
Yeah. What's that mean? What does perfect
it
mean?
doesn't exist.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Perfection is, I think, I actually think real perfection is actually just loving yourself for who you are, because
Agree.
the truth is, I guess maybe there's two kinds of perfection, really. There's perfection the way it is, probably written in the dictionary, but there should be another kind of definition written there, and that is exactly who you are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you trust the universe, then you are perfect, because you're right where you need to be, even if you feel sad.
Yep.
Even if you are feeling sad, that is part of your perfection, because it means and it means you're getting through it. You're going through it.
Yeah. And reminding yourself, it's actually okay to feel sad. It's okay. It's like, it's actually normal.
I had been, that's why I think I enjoyed writing the film so much, because I kept crying while I was writing it. And I was like, thank God. I'd wanted to cry for so long. I'm not, I will cry on an airplane watching a Pixar film, no worries. But when it comes to like just really acknowledging stuff, there's a part of me that holds on, and sometimes I'm like, just cry, because crying is such a release. It's
healthy.
It's so healthy. It's emotion that it's your body's way of purging emotion. That needs to go. And I love crying, but I hadn't for a long time, and then I did. But it's you're right. It's perfection. It totally is. There's a place for it. There's yin and yang in everything, and that's what life's about.
Absolutely, and it goes. I'm going to ask you at the end, which I'm asking everyone a few questions at the end. One of them's about happiness, with which fits in with what you're talking about here. It's like we've been taught the definition of happiness is external, what we acquire, status, money, fame, whatever. And it's a wrong. We've been taught the wrong values for how that's meant to be. Which I'll get to that when I ask you the question. But yeah, look, we've been going for about 40 minutes. I just wanted to sort of I've got a few questions to ask you at the end, but just I guess to summarize, and you've pretty much answered everything I wanted to ask you through what you've said already. But I guess specifically in the entertainment industry as well, I mean, what message would you give to, mental health is a big issue in across all areas of entertainment. I think I can't remember the exact statistics. I think it's it's either three to five times higher, and it's already pretty high in, everyday life. Like what message would you give people that are struggling with anxiety, uncertainty, all the things that come with, being in that industry?
Unfortunately, the reason that that's higher is because, and it's not just because you're mental to want to go into entertainment. It's because to be an entertainer, first of all, I really do believe, I knew that I wanted to be an actor since I was 5 years old. Before that, I wanted to be a singer, apparently. I don't remember that. I've been doing both. But I feel like most of the time, entertainment is a calling. I really do believe that. If you go back to ancient times, every ancient tribe, like the Native American Indians, even the Aboriginal cultures and everything, they all had sort of storytellers, or as the Native Americans called it, the Hayoka. And the Hayoka was a calling, and that person was the storyteller that would pass on the stories from thousands and thousands of years, that would tell tales to explain to people how and why and what to feel. And it sort of even goes into like what became religion, with priests doing the same sort of thing in all different churches. They're storytellers. The Bible is a story. And the reason people, I think, are called to be entertainers is because they already have a disposition to emotion where they're a little bit more attached. They potentially a lot more empathetic. They feel things. You do feel things. I mean, it's hard to cut off from that. And then top it off, entertainment industry is very tough. Like doing auditions, like doing a job interview, and sometimes we have to do it day after day. I mean, if people had any idea how many auditions where it was down to me and like Chris Pine or me and Eddie Redmayne or whatever like that. And, you know, and I'm sitting there going, I'm never going to get this role. But it's like the heartbreak and the aching and the hopes and the what if, and it's crush. It can be a very, like to be an empathetic, emotional person and then be put into an industry that actually is built on criticism and cutting you down and judging is very, very difficult. There is very little way around like it. You know, people will always say it takes a lot to stick with the entertainment industry, and I 100% agree. But I also say, what an amazing gift! What a great challenge! I have parents say to me sometimes, my child wants to be an actor or a singer or whatever, and what should I do? Because they're worried that they're not going to be employed. And I say, I'll tell you what you should do. Put them into classes, support them, build them up. And young people that say to me, I would like to work as an actor, I say, it's really tough, but I tell you what, it is the best job in the world. Changes every day. Sometimes you meet arseholes. There's a lot of them out there, but there's arseholes in every industry. And God love them, bless them. And I enjoy that as well. But I also meet the most divine, kind, beautiful, funny people as well, that just with the biggest open hearts. Actors are resilient, and so are singers and all entertainers. They're resilient, kind people, because for them to make it, they've had to endure all that hell. And that's often what makes them so brilliant. So I'm trying to sum it up by just saying, stick with it, because it's a calling and it's really tough. But if you recognize the heartache and the challenges and the day-to-day challenges that we have to overcome as actually being gifts, because you overcome them, you think, what a great life. How much am I growing? Absolutely.
And yeah, I love it. And, you know, that what you just said applies to anyone that, you know, we all know in our gut what really moves us and makes us, you know, where our heart wants to go. And it applies to anything you want to do in life. And I think so many of us get sidetracked from that because of the rejection or whatever comes about it. But it's looking at it from that perspective of, well, this is rejection, you know, is just going to give me more perspective and it's going to build me up more. I'm going to have more resilience. And if I keep following this, it's not just about the outcome. It's like, look at all these amazing experiences that come out of it. Look at, you know, what you've experienced. You know, you're living all over the world. Like you're saying, you don't know where you're going to be, what's going to happen, who you're going to meet, what you're going to come across. And that's a pretty beautiful way to live life.
And that's, like I said before, so I'm shutting the door, because one of the joys of COVID is having your family around.
Yeah.
Plenty of family time. My sister Zoe is on the phone. No. What do you need? She's coming out. You're going to have to edit this bit out.
That's all good, mate. We're almost finished. Hello. We're almost finished anyway.
But what I was going to say there, I'll wait till that door shut so I can't hear him. Talking on the phone rudely.
No problem.
Those boxes look good. I'll just move this around here. Is that, like you said, you know, they're changing every day. The flying and all that sort of thing. Some, you know, people say to me, they go, "Do you get over travel and all this sort of thing?" And you know what? I do. I even actually realized at one point I started to develop this condition called travel anxiety, where I would, and I had to work out where it came from, because it was really random. I was in New York and I was coming back to Australia and I was totally fine, like completely fine. I was staying at the Standard, I was packing up and I was excited to go home, and then all of a sudden I just had this massive wave of anxiety about leaving, getting on the plane, and I just couldn't, I didn't know where it came from or what was going on. And I realized that I was starting to hate saying goodbye to people all the time, saying goodbye to places, and that potentially I needed to slow down a bit and try and find a stronger home base somewhere, wherever that would be, where I could, I mean, I'm a Cancerian, so I need like my shell. I need to know where my things are and all that stuff. So, but at the same time, it's also a massive, massive gift, and it's the same thing. It's where I need to catch myself out. Every time I feel tired about going to an airport, I remind myself that there are thousands of people that have never been on an aeroplane. And when I was in India last year, I was staying at this beautiful ashram and I met all these amazing people, and I was talking to them, and the common thread of what all these gorgeous people that I met there were most curious about was being on an aeroplane and flying away. And I just thought, you know, we're so blessed in Australia and just the life we had. But I will never forget, you know, as a kid, when I used to fly from LA to New York, I could be sitting in 72F, but happy as anything just to be on that plane and getting out of there. And you have to remind yourself, you know, you have to remember, you can't lose the joy. Otherwise, you do lose the joy. You can't. It's our responsibility to keep in check with our own minds and say, you know what, life's pretty good.
Absolutely. And India does give that to you. You know, I went over there as well. And also, you know, this experience, what better time to really get that perspective on just looking at what we're grateful for.
Totally. I mean, apart from that, I think I've become a bit agoraphobic because I love just sitting in my apartment all the time. I was like, how am I going to get on an airplane ever again? But then it's also made me miss, you know, America so much and the rest of the world and Italy. You know, I was so looking forward to going back there this summer, and maybe I can't now, but just to, you know, I think there's a lot of positives that have come out of this, and even if they're not completely, even if they seem like negatives, where we're like, you know, God, we can't travel to Italy or we can't do this. It's like, also, how much do you miss it? I think people have been wanting to travel more than ever, knowing that they can't.
Yeah,
and we'll a restaurant. I just want to go to a restaurant and order dinner.
Exactly. Just being able to, you know, walk and sit in a cafe and have a coffee and, you know, talk to a stranger. I miss all that. Like,
your friends and go out and dance with them and kiss people, and, you know, like it's there's a lot of things that I miss, and it's great to have perspective, to know how much I actually loved that.
Absolutely. And, you know,
for granted.
And we'll appreciate it more, you know, when it comes back. So, look, I just have a couple of quick questions that I finish up with. So just, you know, simple answers to these ones. They can be whatever comes to mind. It's a few quick questions. First one is, what's best childhood memory?
My best childhood memory? Oh, goodness me.
I mean, there's probably a few, but whatever, yeah.
You know what? I mean, I've got Yeah, I mean, I do have a few. I've got lots of funny ones, but what I can say easily is, when you're doing a meditation, and they always say, "Go to your happy place,"
Yep.
and I will always have strong, fond memories of growing up in South Australia, and we would go to this beach called Aldinga Beach, and the sand, and in Adelaide or South Australia, the temperature gets very, very hot. Um, you know, these days it's now getting up to like 47 degrees Celsius in the city in
Sure.
February. It's the hottest city. It's the hottest city in the world now. Um, in the driest city, in the driest state, the driest continent in the world. And I always remember as a child running across, because there was a long distance between the start of the beach and where the water was, and the sand was so hot, and the wind would be whipping your legs, like whipping it. And I would race, my little feet would just be going, just trying to get to that cold water all the time.
Yeah.
But feeling so happy about the fact that I was just about to get into the ocean. I could never wait. And every time a meditation or someone says, "Go to your happy place," that's where I go.
You can just tap straight into that. I love that. I love that.
Hear my feet on the sand.
You've given me a good vision of it.
Can you please just talk just for the so much? She is so loud. Can't hear her, but I can hear her.
Yeah, I can't hear, mate. It's all good.
Trying to think about what I'm saying.
Yeah, and having that in the makes it tough.
So good. 3 of them and 3 brothers.
Yeah, you got a big family. Yeah, bloody hell. It's
really had nothing to do.
So yeah, a lot of nothing. So next one, mate. What do you think's the biggest burden on mental health in society today?
Well, that's easy. The massive burden on mental health is pressure.
Yep.
And that's why I enjoyed talking to you today about the fact that, even though people will be looking at maybe me on the cover of Men's Health or something like that, the most important thing is for them to not look at it and think, "Oh, that's easy," or "That's easy for him." People always, I get it's pressure, because the reason people say that is because they feel pressure to try and be like this person or that. Like,
exactly. It's tall poppy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but Instagram is also setting really unrealistic goals for people. That's why I said in the interview, I said, look, yeah, I drank and whatever. Like, it was hard. Yes, I ate carbs when I shouldn't have. Yes, I would sit down and eat a block of chocolate. I don't care, because I don't want people to think there is so much pressure to be this person that is like
perfect.
Human.
Yeah.
I ate a carrot for breakfast. Or even worse, people that post photos where they're eating a tub of ice cream and they're basically like this, tiny, super fit sort of like, we put too much pressure. There's too much striving. There's not enough appreciation of where you are.
Yeah, it's just,
I could never have gotten to where I am right at this second if I didn't start to love myself the way I was.
Yeah, it's just honesty, isn't it? It's,
the only reason I even signed up to do the Men's Health thing was because I actually just felt like giving myself. I honestly looked at myself and my body image, which I was fine with. I was completely fine with it. But I thought, I can do better. I'm 34, and it's a good time for me to actually just challenge myself.
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing it because I felt like I needed to do it to be like everyone else or something like that.
Which is, yeah, absolutely.
I think society is putting too much pressure on and that is the biggest mental health issue. You know,
Yep.
We're taught that we can't feel lonely. We're taught that we have to have heaps of friends, that we have to be living this crazy life that's sort of unachievable. And I mean, it's not unachievable. I do believe that you can actually have everything that you want. But when you're feeling down, and it's very hard to see the light and to understand that. And I wish that the media would spend more time talking about how to encourage people to feel happy. And I think that that's one of the reasons people are called to be entertainers, because if there's one thing that I love about my job, it's seeing people when I'm on stage and they're happy and I can make people laugh. And I always say that in every show that I do, all my live shows, I say, I just want you to forget about everything for a while. Come with me. Let's just have a laugh.
Yeah, just be present for a bit. turn off everything else. And where do you see all of this in 10 years' time? Do you see it getting better or worse? Do you think?
Which mental health?
Or where do you see mental health in 10 years? Yeah.
I absolutely have a very, very, very strong faith that even what you're doing right now, the messages that I keep continuously trying to put out, the film that I just wrote, I feel like we are in a very good place. And I feel like very, very soon, more and more people are waking up every day and realizing that we have to talk about each other. We have to talk about our friends. We have to talk about how we feel. Celebrities need to stop pretending that their life is perfect. And they need to start talking about the shit bits.
Yeah.
You know, like you have
sure.
That's the only way, is to talk about the shit bits. How much more would people love Donald Trump, actually, if he just came out and made a speech and said, I'm having a really hard time?
Just show some vulnerability, yeah.
I'm really upset by what you guys are saying. I couldn't sleep last night. I'm doing the best that I can. I didn't really want this. Milana hates me. I'm just really struggling.
I know, it's just, yeah.
Actually, seriously imagine how quickly that would be a huge turnaround if he was honest for 1 minute.
Yep.
Because I'm sure it's very hard being him. People would believe it. People would never believe that because he puts on a front saying, I'm rich, I'm powerful, I hate you all, and I can kill you all. But the truth is, he's a human being, and deep down, he's probably quite an insecure little boy in there. And I'm not saying that I feel sorry for him in any way, because he's not using his power to do any of that. He's using it fear-mongering, which I disagree with, in a huge way. But I'm just saying, if people in power will start to turn the table, things will get easier. But you know what? It doesn't even need to be people in power. It's just as simple as stopping. You see someone at a coffee shop or something like that who's upset. It's literally sometimes the tiniest words. It's like that man giving me a coffee that day when I'd only had 3 hours sleep. I didn't feel great. I was sad. He handed me a coffee and I went, my life is great. Someone's looking after me.
The small things, yeah.
It's like the littlest things, but kindness is coming back. Kindness is cool. And I really do believe that the whole world is on a huge turn. I think COVID's a big part of that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we're all having time to stop, look, smell the roses, whether you like it or not. And I think we're in a good spot. I
love it.
It'll be hopefully a lot more embedded in the education system.
Agree.
Talking more about feelings and less about maths.
Yeah, so important, mate. So two final ones. What would be your personal definition of happiness? Aside from that.
You getting off the phone and stop talking in the background would be great.
That'll do it for you.
My definition of happiness. I mean, look, it changes all the time, and it's so funny. I said to my sister Zoe, the one that keeps interrupting, she's a nightmare. But she said, "What did you say today? You prayed for don't join the conversation, please. But what did you say? You asked for the best day ever."
I said, "Can today be the best day ever in your life?"
Who were you asking?
I was asking all the angels.
No, I said you don't need to come and join the conversation. She was praying to. My sister said she was praying to this beautiful goddess who's in India that we'd both separately gone to see at her ashram, Sri Shakti Amma, and she said to Amma, "Can today be just the best day ever for me?" She said, "I want to have the best day ever." And I said, "How's that going for you?"
It is going. It has been.
Please.
I can't wait to tell you.
I'm sure he's looking forward to it.
Like a hole in there. She said she's praying for the best day ever, and I said, "How's that working out for you?" And she said, "Pretty good so far." And it was funny when she said that, because I took stock and I was thinking, actually, the last few days I've had really good days, and I think my definition of happiness is just recognizing it when it's there.
Mm.
Because happiness is so often there, but we get a little lost in thoughts of the future or what we have to do, or even worse, we start thinking about the past and things that we regret. But actually, happiness is just that quiet little voice that's sitting there, a little emotion that's actually there all the time. But if we don't recognize it, we don't know it. And so as annoying as my sister is, sometimes she reminds me that I'm happy.
She's got some good advice there. No, I love that, mate. That's really good. It's made me feel good hearing that. So thank you for sharing it. And final one, most courageous thing you've ever done. I'm sure there's lots of them, but whatever you comes to mind for you.
The most courageous thing that I've ever done was Zoe, please go. Stop it. Get off the phone. Just go into my room. Just 1 minute.
She's gone.
The most courageous thing that I've ever done, and it was actually the anniversary yesterday. I know this will be... actually, it's the anniversary today. For me, was when my little brother went missing in Nepal, and it was the anniversary of the earthquake yesterday. Obviously, for the listeners, this is recorded a slightly different time. And I'll never forget how awful that was, waking up and finding out that there'd been an earthquake and he was on Mount Everest, and I booked a ticket that day straight away. I went home and I kneeled and I prayed. I couldn't stop crying because I just felt like he was more than likely dead, because where he was where he was supposed to be was the hardest hit, and everyone there reportedly had died. The thing about Mount Everest is when you start to trek up, you have no connection with the outside world. So we didn't know that he'd actually chosen a different route. Thank God. His angels were looking after him, and it wasn't his time. But I didn't know, and I booked a ticket to go straight away that morning to fly to Kathmandu that night. And everybody kept saying to me, there are experts going there, like, leave it to the rescuers and stuff. And I said, no, I only have to find one person. I need to find my brother. And even if I'm going to get his body, I'm going to bring it home and I'm going to find him. And I said, regardless of whether he's dead or alive, I want him to know that I came to get him and that someone was that came straight away. And it was really difficult because someone in the media, I can't remember his name, a real asshole on TV, made a comment. There's a helicopter coming. That's why I'm looking at it.
Can you hear that? Yeah.
They're doing the beach patrol. I wait for it to pass. It's passing by right now. There it is.
There we go. There it is, doing the beach patrol.
I wish I could remember his name. I'm glad that I can't remember his name because he's so insignificant to me. But it was the nastiest thing in the world because he was on morning television. He hosted Deal or No Deal, so they'd know who he was. But he's made a statement trying to say that I was getting publicity out of my brother's disappearance in Nepal, and that was
shocking.
It was the first time I ever really felt Australia. I felt how brutal and disgusting people can be. To think that he could even insinuate that. And it hurt me a lot. And it hurt me to come back to Australia. It made me, it upset me for such a long time. And then I was turning 30 not long after that. And I'd sort of withdrawn a lot. And I was suffering. I didn't know at the time, but I had post-traumatic stress disorder from the whole ordeal because, in the end I went there and I was digging in Kathmandu and I dug up dead bodies and it took years for my little brother's still sort of getting over it, and the struggle has been real for both of us. But I love the fact that I did it. And when my 30th birthday came around, I thought I didn't feel like I could have a party or anything. So I did a big fundraiser for Nepal instead. I called it a night for Nepal and I got all my friends to come perform. It was at the Arts Centre in Melbourne. And just like everything else, I just got through it. But I'm glad that I did it. I always used to joke and say, people don't like me because I'm practical. But one thing I really learned through that whole experience, one of the many things, was that I'm very good in an emergency.
Yeah.
As soon as I knew that had happened, I booked and I flew. And even though it was all reported and heavily covered and it was hell, I did it and I went there and I helped, and I'm glad that I did, and I don't regret anything. Yeah,
mate. Thank you for sharing that as well. It's a pretty. I remember seeing it, and it's amazing to hear that. And probably not many people would go and make those split decisions like what you did, and it's a pretty amazing thing. And
I never had any question. Like for me, it felt like the natural thing to do. But I think one of the things about that sort of that, because it's sort of very weird and unusual thing to happen, is you don't really know what you would do until you were in that situation.
Sure.
But I like to think that most people would have the same reaction that I did, where if you feel that someone that you love might be in trouble and you don't care how far away they are or how dangerous it is, you just want to go and find them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, mate, thank you so much for having this chat today. I really appreciate it. Huge amount of respect for you, mate, and love what you do, and wish we could see each other more. I'm sure we will in the future. And thank you again, mate.
We will, of course, always. All right. Lots of love to you, and thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, mate. Cheers. Thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Move Your Mind. We really could not do this without the support of each and every one of you. It would mean the world to us if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel and share it with as many friends as you can. If you want to hear the audio episodes of the podcast, you can find them on Acast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. All you have to do is look up Move Your Mind with Nick Bracks. And if you want to dive deeper, and you can subscribe to my website, nickbracks.com. Comes with a free PDF and tip sheet. And if you want to dive even deeper, we have programs at nickbracks.com/courses. So once again, thanks for the support, and I hope you all have a great day.